Hello friends in the restaurant, catering, and seafood wholesale business that sells oysters. I'm Stefan Abel from the Oyster Recovery Partnership, also known as ORP. I'm sure you're aware of the environmental challenges facing the Chesapeake Bay, but did you know that your business can play a major role in helping to restore the bay? First, a little background. It may be hard to believe that this small immobile creature is a keystone species in restoring the Chesapeake Bay. Oysters do a lot more than filter water.
When you get an oyster reef built in the Chesapeake Bay, it gets colonized by lots and lots of other very important critters, the fishes, the invertebrates, the crabs, the worms, the anemones, the barnacles, the mussels. Many of these organisms are also filter feeders. So it's not just that what the oysters are removing from the water, it's what the oyster community is removing from the water.
A few hundred years ago, billions of oysters cleaned the entire bay every few days. Now it takes more than a year. Oyster-specific disease, historic overfishing, and the onslaught of silts and sediment, runoff, and degraded water quality have overwhelmed the remaining oyster reefs, leaving harvest rates and the population just a fraction of what they once were. We are Maryland's leader in oyster restoration activities, and I'd like to tell you about our growing program at ORP that recycles oyster shells to help grow new oysters. In cooperation with our partners, Oyster Recovery Partnership has returned nearly 3 billion oysters back into the Chesapeake Bay. But to grow even more oysters, ORP will need many more oyster shells. As you know, oysters are quite popular in our area restaurants, but did you know that each oyster shell can be home to 10 new oysters when recycled and replanted into the bay? That's where you come in.
Last year, we sold 700,000 oysters. So, I mean, the amount of oyster shells that were just going in the trash, is astronomical.
ORP started the Shell Recycling Alliance to collect used shell from area restaurants and catering companies to help us with their bay restoration efforts. ORP's Brian Gomes heads up the shell recycling program, and he is our point of contact with restaurants, catering services, and seafood wholesalers. We work with these businesses by picking up their used oyster shells, and we transport them to a hatchery in Cambridge, Maryland, the largest hatchery in our world for the native oyster, the eastern oyster.
It's just simple. Just have a couple buckets in your station area, your service station, your bartending station, and the kitchen station, and as you go along, you just drop your shells in the bucket. And then the more you think of it as supporting your community and the Chesapeake Bay and everything, you kind of just take more pride in doing your job by helping out, doing what I'd like to call community service.
So oysters are not only good food and good in cleaning our bay's dirty waters, but they also provide a home for other seafood that restaurants serve.
With no real additional expense, you're able to provide the guest with more value. I mean, you're involving them in a cause that I think most people is a good one. It raises awareness in general for our local environment, and it can have a positive effect.
Please consider partnering with us to recycle your shells. Call or email us and we'll arrange to meet at your facility to work out the details. Thank you for your time and interest.